Good morning, everyone. It is Sunday, June 29th. It's around 8:45 a.m. And I decided to do a little planetary check-in. I was just looking at some things this morning and thought, let's just check in with the planets. Let's just see where they are. We're not going to go over any squares or conjunctions. We're just going to go around the wheel and just check in with the planets. So we're going to start with Taurus because this is what made me decide to do this. And Venus is in Taurus. So Venus has been home in her home of Taurus now for a minute because she's already at 24 degrees. And that really kind of hasn't been on my radar because I've been so focused on Jupiter going into Cancer. But Venus is at 24 degrees. And this caught my attention because Uranus is at 29 degrees and he's getting ready to move into Gemini. And so he'll move in there on July 9th. But this is a very powerful time for Venus and Taurus. Like I said, Venus rules Taurus. Uranus has been in Taurus for since what, 2018, 2019. He's kind of retrograding back and forth before he got in there since 2019. Um, and Uranus really brought in the women's movement when it went into Taurus. And this idea of how and remember when I bring talk about the women's movement and this divine feminine energy, it's in everyone. Um, but this idea of how we value ourselves. And right now, Venus is conjunct with Uranus. Uranus is at that critical degree point of 29 degrees. I always think that's a point of mastery. Um, Other astrologers think it's not, I don't know how to say it, that, but it's a critical degree point. So Uranus is at a point of mastery. Venus is at 24 degrees, so they are in conjunction with each other, and so they're starting this conversation. So this is a really beautiful energy. I see this as a very beautiful energy. And the fixed sign of Taurus, this is a great, beautiful energy for all the fixed signs. This when Uranus was in Taurus, it really disrupted all the fixed signs. And so mutable signs are going to get ready for this once Uranus rolls into Gemini, but we'll talk about that later. Um, Venus talking to Uranus, they're in conversation because they're only a few degrees apart. Thanking Uranus for coming in, r churning up all that old energy that needed to go, bringing in that fresh earth into Taurus so we can plant these new seeds in there. What's really interesting is that they're at exact conjunction at 29 degrees of Taurus on July 4th. That is when Venus will give Uranus a hug and be in that deep conversation. Thank them on Independence Day. This is a new way um, for us to see ourselves as independent, um, as a collective, right? With that divine feminine energy. That divine feminine energy understands her worth. And that is a huge conversation right now. Um, what are we worth as people, how we see ourselves and our worth, and what makes us invaluable. And, every life is precious on earth, even if you're mad, even if you're mad at people. Um, but it's still a precious gift. And because Uranus has gone through Taurus and we've gone through all these extreme trials and tribulations, um, you know, world protests are happening. Um, People are speaking up saying, I am somebody. I I am worth it, I am enough. All that really started to come in when Uranus started just churning up all that old Earth and Taurus. And now he's at the end of that journey and he's getting ready to move into Gemini and Venus is there. Venus is there to thank him. I mean, how does this happen? Venus is in her home sign of Taurus and she's able to thank Uranus for doing all this hard work right before he moves into Gemini. And she will meet him in Gemini. So she will go first and then here comes Uranus. So it's in Venus is a communicator. The feminine signs are good communicators. They do want to soothe. They do want things to flow. And so the fact that she gets to go into Gemini, who rules communication, um, and say, okay, get ready for Uranus, right? I think it's so beautiful. And the fact that she gets to thank him for all the hard work that he's put into her home sign of Taurus and making us see, what we hold in regard, how we want to spend money, what we think money is, what we think we should be spending money on. All of that has changed. All of that has changed. So that's what's going on in Taurus. Um, so look on July 4th when you're celebrating Independence. Remember that Uranus and Taurus are in a hug at that 29th degree of Taurus. And keep moving forward with your independence. Let those old patriarchal ideas where women's energy of how it should be spent and what makes it worthwhile, make sure all those are gone. Because you know what you're worth. And again, I'm speaking to both the masculine and feminine. The feminine energy is now knowing her self-worth. So make sure you celebrate that. See it moving into this new divine energy and leaving that old patriarchal story behind on Independence Day. Okay, so moving on, we are in Cancer. So the sun is in Cancer today. The sun is at 6 degrees, and Big Jupes is at 4 degrees of Cancer. So Cancer is cardinal water. Jupiter is just still settling in. He's still at those young degree points, those 0 to 10 degree points I always associate with the pages and the tarot, and that's that unjaded energy, that's that excitement. So Jupiter is just at 4 degrees, and the sun's at 6 degrees. So, and let's just talk about this again. They're still in conjunction, right? Because usually a conjunction, depending on which astrologer you can talk to, it can be anywhere from 8 degrees to close together, 10 degrees apart, exact conjunction. They're at the exact same time. So, like Uranus and Venus are in a conjunction because she's at 24 degrees and he's at 29. So, that's only 5 degrees apart from each other. They will be exact when they're both at 29 degrees on July 4th. Jupiter being at 4 degrees and the sun only being 2 degrees away from it still means they're in conjunction. So, this goes back to the dark moon video where I was talking about when everyone was yelling at us, like, these are the most important days of the year because of where the sun is and Jupiter, because Jupiter's gifts, luck, expansion, y- um, all those things and being in Cancer. So Cancer is initiation. Okay, well, that energy's still there. Okay, and it's X amount of days from when people were yelling. The dark moon was on the 25th, and I'm recording that. So the dark moon was on the 25th when everyone was yelling all that stuff, and it's the 29th. Okay, so and they're just 2 degrees away from each other. So they're still there in that magic. And also the moon is now in its waxing stage where it starts to gain momentum in this cycle. There's still magic, right? And so again, um, I know everyone's fighting for everyone's attention on social media, but everyone needs to chill out, okay? Astrologically speaking, the energy's still there. You can still plant those seeds. And this is one thing I do want to touch on real fast. Moving into this new energy, these new karmic starting points, right? With Saturn and at 1 degrees of Aries, which we'll get to. When we move into this new energy and we're at these crossroads, a lot of times, we're leaving the baggage from toxic relationships, toxic jobs, toxic whatever, you fill in the blank, right? And it's like, I gotta go. It's time to move forward. And obviously there can be some fear with that, of course. The unknown is the unknown, but in your soul that you're ready to move forward. When you go through that door, there can be that sense of relief, but you still are untying some of those knots from that past baggage. So this is when you give yourself that grace. Working with people in the past couple weeks, that has been a big through line. They're ready to move on. They know they want to move on. There's normal fears with that, like seriously normal fears. But the biggest fear that comes up isn't that idea of that self-doubt, because when we get to that conversation, they can look back on their life and see all those times that they have made a jump. It's been okay. Made a jump. It's been okay. But understand you do have to decompress from all the old shit, right? And a lot of times when there's a lot of other shit going on in the world, especially with politics and stuff, it can sometimes make you feel like you're not moving or you're not meditating enough or you're not quiet enough or you're not planting the seeds because another astrologer is screaming at you, these are the best days of your life. And you're like, I'm tired, right? So this is just your reminder that everything is moving forward. Everything's moving at the exact correct pace it needs to be. You're watching this video because you needed this little check-in. You needed to see that you can still plant these seeds in the best days of your life. And you can understand that it does take some time to decompress. That decompression could be a week, it could be 6 years. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you made that choice to move forward, and that forward momentum will keep picking up. And understanding that, sometimes old things do pop their heads, but it doesn't mean that you haven't dealt with them. It doesn't mean that you haven't healed it, right? It just means that it comes back up. Again, if it's something you feel like obsessive or just you need a little extra support, even if it's not obsessive, it runs the gambit, right? That's when you reach out, talk to people, um, go touch grass, as Kevin and I say, get medical support, all these things. Because we are in a time, because energy is moving so fast on the planet, that if we could just take a beat, I would say take a beat, take a step, pump the brakes, kind of recalibrate, it's easier to move forward because we can get out of that head space and more into that heart space, which is helpful with Jupiter in Cancer, initiating this new way of being, but initiating, remembering we all are very strong manifestors, right? And it's just getting into the body space, right? The home, Cancer's the home space, knowing that we can do this. Now, how you move forward with it, it's going to be up to you. The help you get, it's going to be up to you. But it's important to also understand when you have those days of doubt or you have those days of thinking bad thoughts that someone thought about you because who knows what was going on in their life, or you had a really shitty boss and they told you a bunch of bad things about yourself, you know, you do have to understand that you are decompressing from that. You are releasing that. You are getting rid of that energy out of your space, and it can be a process. It doesn't have to be a long process, hell, some of you could decide end it overnight and it ends, and some of you might take more time with it. It's fine. Okay. So give yourself this grace. We are in a beautiful time to plant beautiful seeds. That energy's still there. Okay. So moving on to Leo. Mercury has just moved into Leo. It's only at 3 degrees of Leo. Mercury rules communication, and Leo rules the heart. Leo is inspiration. Again, these early degrees of Leo, we can get real fired up. So just make sure you take a couple breaths before you decide to communicate what you want to communicate. Um, Again, if it is you're communicating to yourself, maybe an old story from an old boss or an old person, or an old lifetime, pump the brakes on that, right? Go into your heart space, see what inspires you now, start that new conversation, right? Oh, wait, I can do this. They don't know me. That wasn't true. They were on drugs. Who knows, right? But Mercury's at Leo in this time, and it's to start this new conversation that inspires us. Okay, Leo's fixed. Um, you know, the fixed signs are pretty quiet right now because we were all working with Uranus, who was in Taurus. And I'm an astrologer that believes that when one thing's going on with a fixed sign, even if it's not in your sign, it does affect the fixed signs. We can go in that to another time just to keep the video rolling. So, um, Mercury at 3 degrees of Leo. So that's where Mercury is. So let's kind of work on, again, using words that inspire us. Okay. Words that come from our hearts is the most important. Okay, Virgo, my mutable Virgos. What's going on in your sign? Mars is there at 6 degrees. Mars is that divine masculine. Mars is going to help us resolve things, move things through. Um, the South Node is at 21 degrees. You know, the South Node is what we're leaving behind as a collective. It being in Virgo, what we're leaving behind is that idea of martyrism and also the mind that doesn't get out of a loop of trying to resolve, right? That lower energy of Virgo wants to resolve everything all the time for everyone, okay? And with that South lunar node in there, it's saying you do not have to resolve everything for everyone at every time. This is reining it in so we can be more focused on the present. You can be more focused on yourself. You can decide what you'd like to resolve, right? That keeps you from expending all your energy on everything, right? And then you kind of missing life. What happens is that Virgos want to keep resolving so much that it gets into this storyline that if they think they can resolve the future before it's happened, then that will affect the present, and it needs to be flipped. If you resolve the present, then that actually manifests the future. So we're reeling that back in. Mars is in there at 6 degrees. He's going to help um, move this energy through. He's going to help notice what we need to resolve in our own lives. Mars is a personal planet. So that works well. Also, Venus being in fixed Taurus is Earth, right? And then Mars being in mutable Virgo. So they aren't in what do you call it, opposition or anything or sextiling or anything, but it's still just that the personal planets of Mars being in Earth and Venus being in Earth, right? We should be able to get some of this, move some of this thing through. And that's how I intuit this. So also the moon just moved into Virgo. She's at 1 degrees. So I saw that as well. Libra, my lovely Libras, nothing's going on in your sign right now. You've got nothing transiting, so very quiet, which is nice because you're a cardinal. And so Jupiter being in cardinal water, it's nice to have quiet cardinal air. Scorpio, fixed waters. You have Black Moon Lilith. She is retrograde at 16 degrees. Um, so you're pretty quiet. Black Moon Lilith. She was known as Adam's first wife. She left because she wouldn't submit. That energy being in Scorpio again. Scorpios, all signs are really strong manifestors, right? Scorpio, you're a strong manifester. Use that Black Moon Lilith. She's retrograde, so she really wants you to go over and remember how strong of a manifester you are. We are in a very strong manifesting time, but with Cancer having Jupiter in there and Scorpio being in there or having Black Moon Lilith, there to me there is an emphasis on water signs. And it doesn't matter if you're not a water sign, okay? Or you don't have any water in your chart. I don't, right? I don't. Um in my big three, but I am a human and I'm on Earth, and I know Black Moon Lilith and Scorpio. So that is telling me I need to focus on what I need to manifest, okay? And it needs to be what I want to manifest, not what I think the society wants me to manifest. So Scorpio, Black Moon Lilith, 16 degrees, retrograde. Okay, moving on to Sagittarius, quiet. You got nothing transiting in there. Your ruler is now in Cancer for a year. Capricorn, quiet. Nothing going on in there. We've got plenty of action in Earth signs with Taurus, with Venus and Uranus and Taurus, and then Mars being in Virgo. So that's good. Capricorn's still just loving life now that Pluto's out of it, not there anymore. So, um, Sagittarius, you're fire, you're mutable fire, you're quiet. Capricorn, you're cardinal earth, you're quiet. Aquarius, you still have Pluto in there. She's retrograde at 3 degrees. Pluto rules Scorpio. There's still, so that fixed energy is still going. The fixed energy, after going through that complete transformation with Uranus, who is Aquarius's ruler, right? Going through Taurus. Aquarius accepting Pluto into her sign. The fixed signs know know what their job is, right? They know they're here. And Leo, she's out there too. Got Mercury in there. They know what the new energy is, and their job now is here to hold this new energy. They had to go through that complete upheaval those past six years, 6 years or so, um, with Uranus going through Taurus, 6 years, 7 years, going through Taurus to undo all of that patriarchal built-in energy. You know, Taurus is the bull, right? But Taurus rules money. Taurus was like capitalism, all these things. And it just bzzz. So all the fixed signs now understand because Taurus, which is fixed earth, right? The fixed signs hold the zodiac, understand now what their energy is. They understand what their job is. So Aquarius with Pluto in there and Pluto being in there for the next, 18 years or so, they've got their assignment and they understand it. So, which is good. Because we really do want those fixed signs to be holding that high vibe energy. That makes things a lot easier. Because I always see the fixed signs as the temple that you would go into to reset, because they know their they know their energy. So Pluto being in there, bringing in that new way, right? Transforming all those old ways of thinking, right? Bringing in new ideas from the cosmos. World protests are happening right now. That's Pluto and Aquarius. Also, I would even say Uranus at that 29-degree point, world protests. Venus being in there, they're peaceful protests as of this morning, okay? As of this morning. Um, so working, um, working with this change, right? We know what we want the change to be. I can't stress this enough with like Aquarius being about the individual and the collective, right? How do we get we can get along. We have more in common than we don't. Um, that's really coming out to play. And with Venus being in there, with Uranus in conjunction, it's keeping it peaceful. Pisces, nothing going on except for the North Node. Pisces, you had a lot going on there for a while with Saturn, Neptune. Right now, you are quiet. North Node is at 21 degrees. The North Node is what we strive for. So we are striving for more spirituality. We are striving for having more, the idea we can dream in new ways of being. That higher Pisces isn't getting fooled by the illusion. So Pisces, your waters are calm. The North Node's at 21 degrees. It can give us time. Pisces is mutable. So it wants us to bring in this new idea of spirituality. Um, and, Aquarius is the star card, which is hope and healing. Um, and then when we go to Pisces, because it's spirituality, I do also see that as hope, you know, something else coming in. So work with that North Node, know that it's there. Okay, and last but not least, we save the best for last, right, Aries? Aries is really interesting to me because at 1 and 2 degrees, Saturn's at 1 degrees, Neptune's at 2 degrees. And then at the end of Aries, you have Eris at 26 degrees and Chiron at, you have Eris at 25 degrees and Chiron at 26 degrees. That right there also screams to me world protests. So Saturn and Neptune, Saturn is bringing in the rules, right? But bringing in the boundaries. Aries is reeling it in. Aries is okay to reel it in. Aries is it's this idea of focusing, right? Because Aries is that I am. What do you want to focus on? Um, Saturn at 1 degree has just come in there. Neptune at 2 degrees. Neptune rules Pisces, right? So Neptune and Aries, um, bringing that water into Aries, cooling it off a little if you think about it, right? And then you have Jupiter going into Cancer, warming up the water that way. So, it's balancing it out, right? It's balancing out that masculine and feminine energy. It's still to me part of this integration that we're coming in back to ourselves. Neptune is in Aries. It's bringing in that I am power to dreaming again, dreaming big. Again, understanding the bigger picture of spirituality isn't there to keep us suppressed, but actually to keep us, to get us to be abundant and living together. You know, Eris at the end, conjunct with Chiron at the end. They're in those degrees of mastery at the end of that I am. Eris is the discord, right? And we see that happening. She's got a purpose. And she's really helping Chiron, who's known as the wounded warrior. We see him as the great, or the wounded teacher. We see him as the great teacher, right? To understand, to come over, to overcome those things that we thought that were our wounds, that were holding us back, but we now realize they're not. Um, and that's causing that discord, right? Like, wait a minute, I do have my own sense of power. I do have my sense of self. Oh, we can get together. What is causing this pain? Maybe we protest against that instead of ourselves. So I hope you guys like this little trip around the zodiac. Let me know if you want to do it again. Sometimes I think it's just okay to sit with what's going on with each sign. What's going on in my sign today? You know, we can do things where things become, conjunct in a sign, but sextiling squares. Jupiter and Saturn are still in a square, so we're still building upon that pressure. Um, I don't know. I didn't look at all the squares. I just know that one's still ongoing. Looking forward again, on July 4th, Venus and Uranus will be conjunct. Make sure you give yourselves a hug on that day. July 9th, Uranus will move into Jupiter. And then on the 10th, we have the full moon in Capricorn. So it's gonna speed up here going into um, the first couple weeks of July. I wouldn't expect any less at this time. So hope you guys enjoy your Sunday. Hope you guys can take a little rest, maybe do a little work around the house since it is Cancer season. I'm probably going to go over and see Heidi. We're probably going to get a video today. I'm going to get a couple of videos up about the powwow that we went to in Homa yesterday with my friend Tammy. If you guys have any questions, of course, comment below, like and subscribe, all those things. And again, I hope you guys have a beautiful Sunday, and I will talk to you soon.